All right, it looks like we are now live and good to go. Hello, my name is Jacob Erdy with MarketingPlayBook.co, where we help small businesses increase their sales and reputation online through digital marketing. And we got a pretty good show lined up for you today. And I know it may sound a bit basic for some of you out there. It's going to be setting up an AdWords campaign, the campaign settings. And for many of you out there, you may be like, well, I've already set up AdWords campaigns before. Well, chances are this will be a good refresher for you regardless. And I'll show you how I set up clients' campaigns and how I set up my own campaigns when I do digital marketing. And there's quite a few almost leaks, you might call them, when you set up an AdWords campaign. By default, they have a lot of settings enabled that aren't necessarily beneficial to, let's say, service-based companies out there, or might not be beneficial at all to you. So by understanding these settings, you're going to be able to make the right choice in whether, hey, it's right for you or it's not right for you. So as usual, we're going to have the company written guide, the show notes page over on the MarketingPlayBook.co. Underneath the Hangouts section, you're going to see today's show, and it's going to be titled, let me see, what did I end up titling this? AdWords PPC Search Campaign Setup. So let's go ahead and dive in. For this, I'm actually going to share my screen, but if you're listening and not visually watching this or not watching live hangout, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to cover each and every setting for you regardless, but I would recommend you go over to the show notes page when you have time to check out the written guide at least, because there I include the screenshots and the like, and you can easily browse through it, and I'll just make your life a lot easier. So let's go ahead and see if I can't share my screen, and we'll go through creating an actual campaign. So it does look like, okay, you are screencasting, present to everyone. All right, so the screen should now be sharing, and I'll have to block out some of the stuff later on. But I'm going to go ahead, and for this purpose, we're going to just be setting up a search campaign. So the options that you have here, you have several options here. This is going to be slanted more towards service-based industries, just so I can really focus in and deliver how I set up a service-based campaign. But this applies to a lot of retail shops out there as well. Now you have display network only, search network only, and then search network with display select. And they recently changed this. Before it used to be search network and the display network, which was a horrible combination. Now they've changed it so it's a little bit better, but still I recommend you only do search network only campaigns, and then you only do display network only campaigns. You do not mix the two, and it just makes things a lot harder to deal with, a lot harder to optimize and really see what's working. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to the search network only. And next up, we're going to be asked whether we want to create a standard one or have all features, or if we want to do a specialized call out. Now the screen might look a little bit different for you, but these options should be the same for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to select all features. There's no reason not to. And they try to have it so they have a basic out there of oh, this is just, make it simpler for people. But by choosing this option, you're really limiting all the options that you have to you, and you're limiting the power of your campaign. So I highly recommend you go ahead and you do all features, and then we're just going to keep that name the default, of course, which you'd change. So next up, we have the networks, and this is a really good one to look at. And by default, this is checked, and for you, you might not want this checked. And what the Google search partners are, you can think of them as even Amazon. Amazon is an actual Google search partner, or at least they were just a few months ago. Sears was in there. I believe Target was in there, a few others. So this can be beneficial, but you are unable to see who the actual search partners are. So you could be spending quite a bit of money on the search partner network, 30–40% of your ad spend on there, and not see where that money's being spent. So they kind of have walled it off. So there's no way for you to optimize and say, okay, where are my leads on the search network coming from? And because of that, I strongly recommend when you first start out to go ahead and disable this. Now, it's going to cut down on some of your campaign volume, but overall, you're just going to be running directly on Google. And so when somebody does a Google search, that's where they'll find you. They won't find you anywhere else. This just limits it allows you to optimize in the best fashion possible without having any external variables in there. So I would turn off the include search partners when you first start off. And this is going to be more true with service-based companies than, let's say, e-commerce stores, but still I like to have it off when going. Next up, we're going to have locations. And with locations, this is pretty important. Here you can go ahead, and if I wanted to, I'm just going to use the example of Denver. I'm going to type in Denver. I'm going to hit add. So I can actually say, okay, this is the location that I want. I just want people in Denver. Under the advanced search tab, you can do quite a bit more. So you can actually do it by radius. So I can put in the location of my shop, and let's say I just serve a 20-mile radius or 25-mile radius. I can put that in here, and what it'll do is it'll find me on the map, and then it'll give me the radius around there. And so people who are doing searches in those areas are going to be able to see my ad, and those outside it, technically they may or may not see it depending upon your further campaign settings. But in this manner, you're able to really nail down, let's say you have a specific zip code that you're trying to go after. Maybe you're a real estate agent and you have one specific zip code that you want to dominate in. Well, that's the way to do it. You can just put in, you can actually do the target by zip code. And you can also exclude areas. So if I'm inside Denver, there might be a zip code in here that I could actually type in, and then instead of hitting add, I would simply hit remove. So if I looked at Denver, Colorado, and I selected nearby, this isn't using the zip code, but yeah, I don't think they'll have, okay, they do. They have some zip codes in here. So I can go ahead and say, okay, exclude the zip code. So you're going to see on the map here, what I did is I'm still servicing all of Denver, but I've now excluded this particular zip code, which is kind of cool. So if there's a specific area inside the city that you're targeting that you're like, you know what, this service area, I don't want to service this area for whatever reason, you can do that. And so definitely take full advantage of the location targeting. And to further this, we're going to go under location options. Now, location options by default, here's another default setting, and it's actually recommended, which kind of ticks me off a little bit. And so this is people in, searching for, or who show interest in my targeted location. So what this will do by having this checked by default, let's say I was a dental practice in Denver. Well, somebody who types in Denver dental or Denver, whatever it is, based upon my keywords, if they're in Canada, my ad can show. If they're in Pakistan or Afghanistan, my ad will show. And the reason why is because they put in that geolocation target in there. So they're not in my search area. They're people who will show interest in my targeted location. So this might not be for you, and you'll have to decide whether it is or isn't. There's a lot of service-based companies out there. I had a client out there who did lawn mowing, and he got calls all the time from out-of-state landlords who wanted their yard mowed, right? So it really depends if upon the search volume of this and the locations, and you can look up through reporting where people are searching for. But generally 90+% of all the searches coming in that are going to be relevant to you are going to be people in your targeted location. So if you do this, then us just targeting Denver and excluding this is going to limit the searches to just people in those areas. And another benefit of this is before, people used to always do a whole lot of geo-targeting. So if I'm a plumber and I do plumber Denver, pipe bursting Denver, whatever it is related to Denver there. Well, if you have it just for people in that targeted location, you're able to go after the keywords that have nothing to do with your geolocation. So you can actually bid on plumbers, and you can bid on really root keywords that you wouldn't have necessarily thought of bidding on before. So you can get a bit more broad when you do people in my targeted location, which is a really, really nice feature because you're able to flush out more keywords and find out more keywords to bid on. So it's a really interesting way to go. I prefer this method. This is the method I always set up nearly all my campaigns on, with few exceptions, software being one of them. But for the most part, people in my targeted location is the way to go, and you should be good to go from there. And this is going to play into, as I was mentioning before, your keyword strategy. So now you might just go after those longer, or not necessarily geo locations, but you can bid on dental practice. So moving on, we have languages, and this is a good one. Really, if you do English, and especially inside the United States, you're going to cover 99% of all people out there. So it doesn't really matter as much. However, you can always target multiple languages in here and still send them to, let's say, your English landing page. Now, if you were going to, let's say you have a Spanish website and you have quite a bit of a Spanish clientele, well, then I'd recommend two different campaigns, one for English and then another one for Spanish. However, all this being said, there's plenty of times where you're going to have people who are non-native, who have their laptops or their phones that are in their native tongue. So if I'm from France, and I'm using my web browser, my web browser's language is in French, then I will only be shown ads that are checked for French. Now the ad itself can still be English. There's nothing wrong with that. But you would not show to that person. It's based upon their browser that they're using to conduct the search, so not their operating system. And that's an important distinction to know. So oftentimes I will go ahead and I'll just say all languages. And the reason why I choose all languages is just because chances are your competition isn't bidding on the French. They're not bidding on the German, the Greek, the Hebrew, whatever it is, right? They're just not bidding on it. And more often than not, you're going to find that these individuals, even if they don't speak English, they have conversational skills that are good enough. And even if they don't have that, they'll oftentimes have a translator that can help translate for them. So it's something to play with. I like to do all languages. Now, I've gotten hit one time from Google saying, well, if you're targeting all languages, you have to have your terms of service and your privacy policy in all languages. So all the languages listed here. And I've never seen that in the terms of service before. I believe it was a Google rep just trying to pick on me. I pushed back. I ended up having to select 10 languages and build out terms of service for those 10 languages. However, speaking with other reps, they're like, I've never heard of that before. That's just crazy talk. So take it for what you want. Chances are you're not going to get hit on it. And, keep in mind, I build thousands of campaigns out. So you're always going to draw that kind of wild hair here and there. So I do like to target all languages. If it's a large population, I'll segment out the language and just target, let's say, Spanish, and to go to my Spanish website. Otherwise, I don't worry about it. I do all languages, and I'm already only targeting people in my targeted location. I really don't care their nationality. It just doesn't matter. So something to play with, and this isn't going to necessarily get you a lot more volume, but at the same time, how many people are bidding on Dutch speaking people? So, I guarantee you there's probably somebody who speaks Dutch who's using a Dutch browser in your city, and you can be there when they need your service. So next up, we're going to have the bid strategy. And this is, there's multiple components here to really think about. And by default, you're going to have the manual CPC. And this is the way I actually go, is I just do the manual CPC, which means you're choosing the maximum cost per click. And then by default, you're going to have enable enhanced CPC. And what this is going to do is Google, or I should say AdWords, is going to adjust your bid according to if they think somebody's going to convert. So if my bid was $1, they could adjust technically up to $1.20, up to 20% more than the max CPC price. So if my bid's $1, it could go up to $1.20 if they believe that individual stands a higher chance of converting. And it's really important to note that on the search end, they have very, very complicated algorithms going through. It's already there on the display end that you can take advantage of, such as affinity groups and interest-based groups. Well, at the same time, Google has already tied that in on the search end. So when somebody is doing a search, based upon their past browsing history, based upon their past searches, they already know if that individual is probably interested in your product or your service, just based upon their browsing habits. So because of that data, there's thousands of different data points that Google uses to say, hey, should we use this enable enhanced CPC or not? Now, when this is on, it's gonna work something like 50% of the time based upon the documentation that I've read. So 50% of the time it's gonna use this type of strategy. The other 50% of the time it won't. So it's a good way of going, especially if you're using some sort of conversions out there. And if you do have any questions, feel free and tweet to we have it at MKTG. So it's going to be on Twitter, MKTG Playbook. So feel free and send us a tweet. That's how we're taking all comments coming in. So if you have a comment, feel free and send us a tweet. And we had to switch to Twitter just because we have multiple windows that we're streaming out to now. So it's just too hard otherwise to really get and see everything else. So if you have any questions and you're on, feel free and send us a tweet and we can answer it live on air for you, hopefully. And next up, we have the default bid. So the default bid really depends upon the competition that's in your field. So if you're a lawyer and you're in Denver, there's a lot of competition there, which means you're probably going to be paying 5, 6, 10, even 20 bucks a click. So something to watch out for. It ultimately depends upon, like I said, the competition and what you're comfortable with paying. If you're not comfortable with paying those $5 or $6 or $10 a click, then don't. Put in what you're comfortable with. Just know that you're going to limit your volume. You're going to limit your ad position. And I try to bid using the Google Keywords tool, which is going to be under the Tools menu in Opportunities. You can go in or Keywords. You can go in and see the actual bid price for each and every keyword. And with that, you're going to be able to decide, okay, what is the rough estimate that Google recommends I bid? And that rough estimate is just that. It's a rough estimate. Now, even if I put my default bid as, let's say, $5, and that'll be my max bid, I have enhanced CPC on, so technically I could be paying $6 a click. That doesn't mean each and every click is going to be $6. It's a proxy bidding system. So depending upon my position, depending upon many other factors and my quality score, that ultimately is going to determine what I'm going to pay. So, and we've covered this more in depth under, let's say, the quality score section. So if you've had time to look at any of our training guides, we have a Google search training guide where I kind of cover this more in depth. And when you combine, an aggressive bid along with using extensions, along with properly written ad and a good landing page, which will get you a higher click-through rate. When you get that higher click-through rate, it's going to help with your quality score. When you get a good quality score, it's going to help with your cost per click and drive that metric down. So bidding aggressive can be really good because it can put you into that first position. And granted, you might be paying more initially, but as Google scores your account and scores your keywords, that bid price is going to drop. And so as long as you're on top of the negative keywords from the search terms, then you're going to be pretty good. You're going to be able to optimize yourself to profitability. So chances are. So the budget right here, and this is going to be by default the daily budget that you set. And again, set this to whatever you're comfortable with. So if I did, let's say, a $1 bid for my keywords, and I'm only comfortable spending, let's say, $600 a month, that's roughly $20 a day. So you don't want to say, well, I'm going to open this up to $1,000 in a day. And what happens if you get $1,000 spend and no calls, right? So do whatever is within your budget for your daily budget. And there's nothing wrong with bidding aggressive, so you get in that #1 spot, and then bidding, having a max budget set that kind of limits your exposure. So there's nothing wrong with going with that method. I do it with a lot of clients who are small and they don't necessarily have a big budget. It's a good way of going just to try to get some metrics coming in and getting into that first bid position without spending a lot of money each and every day. Now, it'll limit your leads, but at the same time, you're well within your budget. The next up here, we're going to have the delivery method. So they have standard, which is optimized delivery of ads over time, which is their recommended, and then you have accelerated. So how I usually start off is I start off with the standard, which means they're going to show your ad at, starting at midnight. They're going to start showing your ad, but they're going to try to show it evenly throughout the day based upon your budget. So that way, you might get a click or two in the morning, a click or two in the afternoon, a click or two in the evening. And this just helps kind of spreads you out throughout the day. Now, you will find if you start to generate leads and you're starting to get profitable and you're constantly hitting your daily budget, then what I would do is I would switch to accelerated and increase my daily budget. And that way you're taking more of the market share. So if going back to the Denver Dental, if you're a dental practice and you're looking for new clients and you're converting and you're getting 1 or 2 clients a day or every other day, whatever it is, and you're meeting your cost per acquisition goals, it might be $40 a customer or $100 a customer. If you're meeting those goals and you can afford more, then take up as much of the market share as you can. And in order to take up as much of the market share as you can, you need to increase your budget and then increase the accelerated ads, this accelerated spend. So it spends as quickly as possible. It's going to show your ad as many times as it's possible until your daily budget is completed. So that's a really good way to go when you start seeing some progress going. Otherwise, by default, I keep it off at standard. And next up, we have ad extensions, and I'm going to save a lot of the ad extensions and go more in depth at a later date, just because there's a lot of caveats to them. But using call extensions are absolutely fantastic, especially if you're a service-based company. So if I'm an auto mechanic, for instance, I can use a site link. So if somebody types in auto repair and I'm in that first or second position in Google, then my ad extensions are going to show up. And this is going to help boost your click-through rate because there's more of you to click, right? It'll also help because if somebody types in something more generic, let's say auto repair, well, you right there in your site links, you can list brake repair, engine service, or whatever services you want to list. And that really helps the individual kind of drive down saying, oh yeah, I did want the brake repair. And so you'll have a higher chance of getting that click over other people who might not be in that first or second position, and other people who aren't using site link extensions. And another great thing is the location extension. This is really valuable. And if you type in and you're looking for something, especially a product or a service that's local that you're going to drive to, then this can be gangbusters because it has the location right then and there. And a lot of searches are done on mobile phones. So chances are that if you have a location extension, they're going to be able to see exactly how far away you are from them, and they can easily click a button and get driving directions right to your store. So I forget the metric that Google released on this, but it was something like 50% of all people who clicked on the location extension actually visited that store within the next 24 hours or something like that. It was a really, really crazy statistic. And I was like, wow, is that really true? And then something like 40% of those, and this is off the top of my head, so I guarantee you I got the numbers wrong a little bit, but something like 40% of those actually converted into a sale. So yeah, that's a good extension. The site link extensions, the call extension is fantastic. Now, if you do the call extension, there's nothing wrong with it. I recommend it, and the call extension is simply going to have your phone number there or a Google forwarding number, depending upon how you set up your conversions. And with that, if I'm searching on a mobile phone, it's going to give me the option of just calling you. Now, if I'm on a PC, I can still see the number and pick up my phone and call. So it's a great way of having it there to really help gauge, if you're a service-based industry, to really help drive those calls, because once you get that call, your conversion rate of that customer is probably 20 to 50 to 70%. Once you got somebody, hey, yeah, I need emergency plumbing. My basement's leaking. I need somebody out here. You're going to land those sales. So the call extension is a fantastic one. The review extensions, call out. like I said, I'll go more in depth later. My point here is use these call extensions. It greatly can improve your click-through rate on your ad and really help drive conversions. The last one I'll quickly talk about is going to be the call-outs. And the call-outs can be something like, we're open now, 24/7 service, free shipping, fast repair, same-day repair, the things along those lines. It's a call to action that informs individuals and usually is based around, some of the more beneficial ones are actually based around the common questions that customers may have. Do you do ABC type service? And it's a fantastic way of kind of just saying, hey, this is what we're about. And so call outs are really, really nice. Next up here, we have the advanced setting, and we want to have this if we didn't enable all features on the account for the campaign setup, which is one valuable reason why you do it. And that is to actually set up your ad schedule. So this is something that I see quite a bit of people do, but leave out by mistake, and partly because they selected standard instead of the advanced campaign setup, all of the features, I should say. So with the scheduling, you're able to actually put in the hours of your business, and this is how I generally would use it. So if you're not open on Sunday, remove Sunday. If you're not open on Saturday, remove Saturday, right? And otherwise, just go ahead and set the times in which you're going to be in the shop and available to answer the phone. And this is really going to give you more bang for the buck, especially if you're driving people to your website, which I covered in a previous hangout here about having that phone number front and center. In service-based industries, it's so important to have that phone number. And this is a fantastic way of just getting traffic to when your storefront is open, or when you're, if you're working at your home, to generate those calls and the like and the clicks to your website and the interest while you're there and available to actually answer the customer immediately. So this is a fantastic way of going, and you're going to find a lot of small businesses already do take advantage of this. So here's a tip that I've experimented with, and it has worked for a client that I've experimented with. And granted, they were in a very large city, and with them, all their competition opened up, I think it was at 8 a.m. And what we ended up doing with his account is we actually opened up at 6. And so it was on select days that he did. I think his busier days tended to be Mondays, and I think Mondays and Fridays, for whatever reason, go figure. But for I believe it was those 2 days. I know Monday was one of them for sure. And what we ended up doing is we actually ended up showing his ads 2 hours earlier than all of his competition. And the clicks that he got during those 2 hours, that his ad position was boom, number one, and he was actually paying a lower cost per click. And the reason for that is because his competition wasn't currently running during those time frames, but yet he was getting quite a bit of calls that early in the morning. There's a lot of early bird risers out there. So it's something to keep in mind. And if you have that, yes, we're open for a call out, and those are all showing up, and you're opening up earlier than your competition. And even if it's only on select days, it's a way of trying to gain as much as you can. It's a nice little trick. It's something that I haven't talked other clients into trying yet, mostly because they have multiple employees, and it's not really possible for them. But if it is, it's something I'd recommend trying out just to see and experimenting with. And if it does work for you, or if it doesn't work for you, let me know. Contact me over at jacob@MarketingPlayBook.co. Shoot me an email and let me know how it worked for you. Next up, we're going to have ad rotation. Now, this is something that does also kind of tick me off with AdWords, and that is by default, it's optimized for clicks, show ads expected to provide more clicks. The issue is they don't split test. So I know the system's smart enough to be able to do this. I know they're smart enough to be able to do this, but what you're going to have is you're going to see all the time, you're going to have 3 ads, and all 3 ads, one ad out of those 3 are going to show. So then that ad's going to show like 90% of the time, and the other two ads are going to show, 5% and 4% and maybe 6% of the time. So off the bat, they only just run with one ad. And it's not really split testing, is it? They're just automatically assuming, well, this is the winner just because it got a click first or something along those lines. I'm not sure how they actually determine it, but the way they optimize all the time, I find that they don't give other ad copy a chance. So what I usually do, especially starting off, is I rotate indefinitely. So I have my 2 competing ads or my 3 competing ads going. And then based upon actual true statistics, after 100 clicks or 1,000 clicks or however many impressions, I can see which one's giving me the better conversion rate, and then which one's actually giving me the better click-through rate. And the click-through rate for a lot of service-based industries is what you're going to track. You might not be able to track the conversions in the same manner. Now, we'll at a later date kind of talk about some tips and tricks there for counting conversions and the different options you have out there. And that'll be another great hangout to attend. So I definitely would recommend and stay tuned for that. You can subscribe to our newsletter so you know when we're actually going to shoot out that and do that live hangout. You can also like us on YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and all that good jazz. Next up here, that's it. I mean, that's the last one. I'd rotate indefinitely, and just know that you're rotating indefinitely, and then go ahead and switch over to at a later date, once you start pausing ads and stuff, then you can switch over to optimize for conversions or optimize for clicks, just depending upon really what you're going after. So that is really it for today. And if there are any questions, I'll give you about a minute to send them in here on over on Twitter. That's going to be marketing, or it's going to be MKTG Playbook. Yeah, that's it, MKTG Playbook. So I've got it right here in the footer, so you can go ahead and see it out. So we haven't decided on next week's show. It's kind of tentative. I'm taking suggestions, so if anybody has something. Otherwise, I'll probably stick with doing a bit more AdWords and going over the AdWords extensions and going over AdWords conversions and your conversions options for it, because especially with more and more people are taking advantage of the extensions out there, which is fantastic. But so many small businesses aren't doing anything on the conversion end. So they're like, well, we're a service-based industry. We don't have forms and newsletters and things for customers to fill out. So how are we supposed to track sales? Well, there's multiple things you can do, especially with the call number, because half of your contact you're going to get is going to be through your call number. So you can use a Google forwarding number on your actual website, which is pretty cool. And we're going to dive into that here at a later date and kind of go over it. So lastly, in ending, we have our Facebook group, our private Facebook group that we started up. And you're going to be able to connect with that on our community page at MarketingPlayBook.co. Currently, the private Facebook group is open to everyone. You can go ahead and join it, and we'll approve you. At a later date, we're going to start charging for it. But if you get in now, we're not going to charge you. It's going to be a lifetime membership, which will be pretty fantastic, really, for you. And the purpose for having the private community there is so you can ask those more sensitive questions that you don't necessarily want the public seeing. So this is a group of small businesses in there, and we're here to really answer any marketing and digital marketing questions that you have, not just AdWords related, but anything related. It can be on-site, off-site, it could be SEO. It really doesn't matter. We have quite a bit of experts out there who can help you out besides myself, and I'm more than happy to do so. That's why I started MarketingPlayBook.co, right? So that's going to be it for today. We don't have any tweets that came in, so we are good to go. And hey, I thank you. I hope you liked it. And if you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and all that good jazz. Take care.